Hello everyone, I hope you are having a nice day. So in today's tutorial, we'll see how to take all these images that you can see in here and create this really cool photo composite or photo manipulation using Adobe Photoshop. But before we're gonna do that, make sure to subscribe and comment and leave a like. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so let's go ahead and open Photoshop, and then let's go and open the first image that we'll be using, which is this one. So we'll take it and open it in here. Alright, so the first thing that we are going to do is to make a selection of the model or the subject, and then I want to make a separate layer for the model and the background. So we're gonna make a selection, and then we're gonna use content aware to remove the model from the background, and this way we will have only the cave image alone. Alright, so let's go ahead and start making the selection. So let's go to select and choose subject. Alright, as you can see, we have our selection, but it's not as good. As you can see, we still have a lot of areas in here that we need to fix. So let's just press Q, and this way we can use our brush to add or remove from the selection. So it's basically black you can remove and white you can add to the selection. So all this colored area in here that it has color, it's not selected, and the areas that's without color, it's selected. So, and if I press X, can switch between black and white, and if you don't have black and white in here, which I think is by default, when you press Q you will have black and white, you can just switch between them pressing X. Alright, now we will zoom in, and let me make brush smaller, and I will remove this area in here. And there is another trick that you can do with your brush. You can just one click and then press shift on your keyboard and click again, and this will make a straight line in here, and you can follow the edge in here by just click, shift click. Now always press shift and click, and this will make a nice line in here, and then you can go back and make it a little bit rounded in here with the areas that it need to be adjusted. Alright, so we'll keep doing that until everything in here is good. Alright, I think we have a decent selection, and for these areas in here you can just leave them because we're gonna use the same background, so it will be easily blended with the background. Alright, now I'm gonna press Q again to get outside of the Q selection mode, and then I will go to select and choose select and mask. Alright, now it's white. You can change the color in here, put it in black or whatever. Let me make something that is very visible to see if there are some black lines. As you can see, there are some black lines in here. Yeah, so we're gonna actually shift the edges a little bit by going to global refinement, and I will shift the edge to -40 or 50 and see Yeah, I think it's a little bit better. Any minus 50 is good. And then I will smooth it a little bit to like 10 or 8. And I think that's all. And I will press OK. Alright, now we'll duplicate the background layer. And I'm not gonna press Ctrl Command J. I will just take it and drag it to this new layer icon, because I already have a selection loaded. And if I press Ctrl Command J, I will make a copy of only the selected area. Alright, next I will one click on this layer mask, and this will add the selection to the layer mask, and we have our selection. Alright, now we'll make the original background visible, and I will press Alt or Option and double click on it to unlock it. And then I will load the selection of this layer mask that we did in here. So I'm gonna press Ctrl or Command and one click, and this will load the same selection that we just did. Alright, next I will go to Select and choose Modify, and I will choose Expand. So for the content aware to work, you need to actually make a selection like to be not 100% with the area that you want to remove. You need to make a wide selection in here. So we're gonna actually make it wider by expanding it. So let me put like 60 pixels and press OK, and it will make it like that. And this way the content aware will work perfectly. Let me just add this to the selection by using the lasso tool. We'll just add this part in here too. Alright, now we can go to Edit and choose Content Aware Fill. Alright, as you can see, now we have our model or the subject in here disappear, and I think it's good. So I'm just gonna press Apply and then OK. Alright, I think it looks good. Alright, let me just merge these two together by actually selecting this one and pressing Ctrl and selecting the second one, and then press Ctrl Command E, and let me call this PG. Alright, now we have the model and the background separated, as you can see. Let me actually right click and choose Convert to Smart Objects for this, and let me call this model. Alright, now we have our model in here as a smart object. Now we can go back to the background, and actually I want to make it a little bit wider in the edges in here, and maybe make the ground a little bit right above in here, so we can put the model a little bit down to this area in here. So let's go to the crop tool, and I will just put the edge a little bit in here and put this a little bit in here, just like that. Not that much, but it's good. And one click on this check mark, and then I will select the background layer, and I will press Ctrl Command T, and using Shift and Alt or Option and Shift, I can stretch it just a little bit. I mean, it's stretching, but it's not that much. I don't think it looks bad, as you can see. Now we can just take the model and put it just right here, and it will look good. Alright, now let's adjust the ground a little bit. So let's select the background layer, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command J to make a copy of it, and I will select the copy and press Ctrl Command T, and I will do basically the same. I will press Shift this time and go down in here, and I will drag it up, but I'm only pressing Shift this time, not Shift and Alt, somewhere around here. Alright, and I will one click on this check mark. Alright, I think it looks good. Now, as you can see, we have these repeated areas in here that we need to fade. So to do that, I'm just gonna select this background copy, and I will apply a layer mask, and then I will go to my gradient, and in the gradients in here I have it set to color to transparent with the linear gradients in here. So just select the second one that said color to transparent, which means that whatever foreground color that we have in here, it will be the color to the transparent. And because we're gonna use the layer mask, we will need black. So let me just go in here and one click and drag, and this will hide this part in here. All right, but now as you can see, we have a little bit of repeated areas in here. So we will fix that using the clone stamp tool. Alright, let me just select this copy with this one by pressing Ctrl and then pressing Ctrl Command E to merge them together. And then I will create a new layer on top, and I will press S to select the clone stamp tool. I'm using 100% opacity, 100% flow, and I will just maybe make the hardness set to 70%. And pressing Alt, I can just sample some information from here and put it in here, just like that. Maybe I will make the hardness a little bit down, 20%, and I will do this for all the areas that I think they are repeated. For example, this one with this one, it looks like a repetition. This one too. Just add a little bit of details to our image, but it won't look that obvious that we stretch it and we stretch the ground too. Alright, let me just remove this area in here. And for this one, I think I will make the hardness set to like 90%. Alright, I think it looks decent, but I want to add a little bit of brown ground to this area in here. So to do that, I will just select the background copy, and then I will select a lasso tool. Maybe I will use like 2 for the feather, and then I will select a brown area in here, a random area. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command C to copy it, and then I will select this layer and then Ctrl Command V to paste. Now I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T, and I will take this area, make it a little bit smaller, and put it just right here. Alright, and I will one click on this check mark. Now I will add a layer mask, and using a brush, we'll just fade it with the other gray in here that we have, just like that, just to add a little bit of different spots. Alright, I think it looks good. Now we can just merge everything together, this 3 layer, by pressing Shift and then press Ctrl Command E, and let's call this PG for background. And now we can just select the model and press Ctrl Command T, maybe make it in the center, somewhere around here, a little bit smaller than this, and one click on this check mark. Alright, next I will go and open the second image that we'll be using, which is this one. So we just take it and drag it in here, and one click on this check mark, and this should be actually under the model layer in here, and somewhere around here. We can resize it later, and then I will actually rename it to elf, and then I will right click and choose convert to smart object, because we're still gonna do a lot of adjustment, or we're gonna add a lot of things. So it's better to do it inside the smart objects. So now I'm just gonna double click on this smart objects right here to enter the smart objects in here, and then we're gonna actually add the ear in here, the elf ear. And I also want to smooth a little bit the skin, and I want to add a little bit of like hairs maybe in this part in here. Alright, so let's start with the ear. So let's go ahead and open the ear in here. Let me zoom in, and then I will drop down the opacity somewhere around here, and I will make it smaller. Maybe rotate it a little bit. Let's see, we have the ear in here. Need to be somewhere around here. Be a little bit smaller. Alright, I think I will right click and choose distort, and I will take this a little bit up, and maybe I will bring it somewhere around here. Alright, now we'll right click and choose warp, and I want to warp this area in here. Also I want to bring this a little bit up, stretch it quite a bit, maybe put it somewhere in here, and let's see, maybe a little bit. Alright, something like that. I think it looks okay. Alright, and then I will put 100% opacity, and then I will apply a layer mask. Let me call this ear, and I will select the layer mask, and using a normal soft brush with like 30% opacity, I will try to blend a little bit the edges of this ear. Alright, something like that. I think it looks good. Let me actually, I think I want to make it a little bit smaller than this. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T, and I will bring it down a little bit. Also I will warp it in here and scale it up. Alright, I think it would work like this. Alright, okay, now we're gonna try to blend it with the skin. So the first thing that I will do is to actually make it black and white. I mean, I want to do this in a non-destructive way. So let's go to adjustments and choose hue and saturation, and make the saturation down, but we need to clip it for the air layer only by clicking on this clipping mask. Alright, next I want to add a gradient map. So let's go to adjustments and choose gradient map, and again I will clip it to affect only the ear, and then I will open the gradient in here, and I will select this color stop, the first one, and I will sample a dark color from the skin of the girl, and I will press OK, and then I will select the second color stop, and I will open it, and then I will select the lightest or the light color of the skin. Yeah, something like that, and I will press OK. Let me see, I think, yeah, we have two color stops in here. Let me just redo it, maybe from here. Alright, and I will press OK. Now we'll change the blending mode of this gradient map to multiply, because I think I want to adjust even more the gradient map. So let me actually open this first color stop. I think I want to make it a little bit darker. maybe somewhere around here. And let me make this somewhere around here. I think it's a little bit better now. Okay, next, for us to blend everything good together, we're gonna actually sample. We're gonna take a copy of the skin itself. So let's select the elf layer, and then let's grab our lasso tool, and we're gonna make a selection, like a random selection of this part in here, just like that, and then press Ctrl Command C to copy it, and then select the gradients map, and then press Ctrl Command V to paste. And then I will clip it to the ear layer, and let's call this skin. Now I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T, and I will drag this just right here, maybe make it bigger. Alright. Now we'll double click on this, or actually let's go to this FX icon and choose the blending options to open the layer style dialog. Alright, now we're gonna use the blend if option. So we're gonna choose underline layer. We're gonna actually take this black point and then press Alt and split it just like that. As you can see now, it's blending perfectly with the skin. Maybe I will just, let me see, yeah, I think around this. Alright, something like that. I think it looks good, and I will press OK, and let's see before and after. Let me go back actually to the layer style dialog again, and I will put down this a little bit, maybe put this up. Let's see, I think it looks decent. Maybe we need to adjust it more even in this layer in here. So let's select the layer mask, and let's delete a little bit these edges and make it blend even more with the skin, just like that. I think it's much better like this. And you can even make another copy of the skin layer by pressing Ctrl Command J, and then clip it and go to the blending options again, and let's play with the blend if options. Yeah, maybe make it a little bit faded in here. Alright, and bring down the opacity, actually bring down the fill to like 50 or 40%. Let's see before and after. Yeah, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's blending very good. Maybe I will bring down the opacity of this a little bit, like 80% or 85%. Alright, as you can see, we have our ear in here, perfectly blended. And for the placement of the ear, you can place it wherever you want, maybe make it even more higher. But I think for this tutorial it looks good. Okay, now we're gonna actually make some hairs in here. So let's select the elf layer in here, and then I will create a new layer just on top of it, and I will call this hair. Alright, and let's go to our brushes and select these hairs in here, or these hair brushes. I will make sure to put down these brushes down in the link from the description below too. Alright, so let's sample a color, maybe this one in here, and then let's make the size to like 7 or 8 pixels, and I will just start painting. Or maybe I will put down the smooth. We'll just start painting in this area in here, because I want to add this kind of like hair that is coming like this and going here and going down just like that. And this way we can even hide our ear even more. And I also want to add some hairs dropping just like this. Alright, so something like this, and even that it looks a little bit messy, but after we're gonna apply adjustments it will look good. So actually I create this hair layer in here under the ear layer, and also I created one on top just to bring it a little bit in here. Alright, so this is before and this is after. I think it looks a little bit okay. Alright, now the next thing that we are going to do is the smooth the skin a little bit, but before we're gonna do that I want to remove these points a little bit from here. I mean, there are not a lot, only these ones, and also it's very noisy, so it will be easier to do it. Alright, so let's create a new layer on top of this hair layer, and let's call it fix. Alright, and then I'm gonna press S to open the clone stamp tool, and I will just press Alt or Option and sample from here and put it in here. Very easy to do. Also, I want to remove this black dot in here. I know it's very noisy, but I think we're gonna make it work. Alright. Yeah, let's remove this one too. Okay, and this one. Alright, I think it looks good. Alright, now let me just group everything together. So I'm gonna select this fix layer and pressing shift on my keyboard, I will select the hair layer in here, and this will select everything. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command G, and let's call this ear and hair. Alright, next I will create a new layer, and I will call this reduce noise. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift Alt E, or Command Shift Option E all together, and this will create a stamp visible layer, which is basically a screenshot of what we have on our canvas, as you can see, but it will put it only in one layer. Alright, now we'll go to filter, and I will choose camera raw filter. Alright, so inside the camera raw filter we're only gonna use this detail tab. As you can see, you can find in here noise reduction, so we're gonna put this around 50 or 45%. I mean, it's depend on the image, of course. So let me zoom in and see before and after. As you can see, we did a very good job removing all that noise, or like reducing it a little bit. Alright, so I think it looks good. Let me just put it like 50%, and the web is okay. Alright, now the problem is we have also the hair that we created. It's got a little bit blurred, and to fix that we're just gonna copy the same hairs layer that we have in here. So I'm gonna select this hair in here, and this time I will press Ctrl, and this will allow me to select whatever layer without selecting all of them. So I'm gonna select only these two layers, like the hair layer in here on top and this one down in here by pressing Ctrl Command. And then I'm gonna press Alt or Option, and I will drag them on top of this reduce noise layer in here. But as you can see, we have these hairs that they're supposed to be behind the ear. So to do that, we're just gonna select the ear layer in here. So I'm gonna load the selection of this, and then I'm gonna go into this hair copy tool that we have in here, and I will one click on this layer mask, and we have it now inversed. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Command I while I'm selecting the layer mask, and now we have the problem solved. Alright, now let me select them both by pressing Ctrl, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command E to merge them together. And let's see. Alright, so I think I'm gonna put down the opacity to like 70 or 60%. Alright, something like that. I think it looks fine. Alright, perfect. Now I think we are ready, or we are done with these smart objects. As you can see, so this is the before and after. It's way much smoother with our ear in here, and I think we are ready to go. Alright, so let me just close this and press yes to save it, and this will take us to our main document in here. Alright, so now I'm gonna hide these two by making them invisible, and I will select the background layer, and then I always like to convert everything to smart objects. So I'm just gonna right click and convert to smart objects. This way I can apply some filters, and if I don't like the setting of the filter, I can just go back and adjust it later if I want. So while I'm selecting the background layer, I will go to filter, and I will choose camera raw filter. Alright, now we're gonna open the basic tab, and I think I will add a little bit of blue and a little bit of green. Let me see, it's like that, and bring down the exposure quite a bit. Yeah, maybe something like this. Add a little bit of blue, maybe like 10, -10. And let's see, magenta or green. I think I will put a little bit of green, just like that. And for the contrast, I think I will put up the contrast a little bit, and highlight, I will put them down a little bit. And for the shadow, I won't mess with the shadow, I will just keep it set to 0, and I will add a little bit of clarity, like 3, and maybe bring down the saturation quite a bit. Alright, something like that. I think it looks good, and the web is okay. Alright, now we have our camera raw filter in here. Now I can only, like, for example, I can select the model layer and make it visible, and by pressing Alt or Option, I can just drag this smart filter in here and putting it in the model too, because it's a smart object and we can do that. Alright, now we have the same color in here set for the model layer. And let me just press Ctrl T and put it somewhere around here. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Alright, something like that. Alright, now we'll make the elf layer visible, and then I will do the same. I will press in Alt or Option, and I will drag this camera raw filter in here and put it in here because it's the same color I want to apply on all of them. Alright, now I want to put down the opacity a little bit and see where I want to make this a little bit bigger, because I want the head to be around here. Also I want the feet, let me show you the feet, I want them to be here. Alright, so I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T and I will make it a little bit bigger somewhere around here. Also the feet, I want them to be placed just right there, and make it a little bit bigger. Let me see, because there is like a kind of a rock in here, so I will just put it down a little bit. I think this is good, and I will one click on this check mark. Alright, now I will apply a layer mask on the elf layer, and using my brushes I will delete all this using black as my foreground color. I will delete all this in here, and I only want the girl to be there in the cave, and this will actually help us to blend the girl with the cave in here, as you can see. Alright, so something like that. I mean, because we have a black background, it's actually very easy to blend everything together using black, but of course we can add a lot of adjustments and details. As you can see, I see this in here, and I think it's inside our layer in here. So let me double click on the smart objects and go fix it very quick. So I'll create a new layer, and I will use S, my clone stamp tool, and I will just sample and fix all this in here. And also I want to fix this part in here, maybe bring this down just like that. Alright, and I think I want to add a little bit of the skin over here. Alright, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl S, or I will just close it and make sure to press yes to save. Alright, I think now it's good, but I think I will make it a little bit bigger. So let me just press Ctrl Command T, and I will put it a little bit up, somewhere around here. And I want the feet to be somewhere else, right above this ground in here. Alright, yeah, I think it looks good, and I will one click on this check mark. And let me select the layer mask again, and pressing B for my brushes. I want to reveal a little bit in this feet parts in here using white, just like that, and maybe delete in this area in here. Alright, I think it looks okay. Alright, let me select the model layer, and I will press V, and I will place the model somewhere around here. Alright. Okay, next I want actually to put like a veil or like a silk in here. So let's go ahead and open this red silk. So I will take it and open it in a new tab. And I want actually to hide this frame in here. So to do that, I will just create a new layer, and I will use white because we have a white background in here, and I will just paint in here to hide all this frame in here. It should be very easy to do. Yeah, something like this. Alright, and let's go to the other one. And actually this one, I think I would use the pencil for it, so I would just do it faster. Alright, something like that, and I would close the path in here. Alright, and then I'm gonna press Control Enter or Control Command Return, and I will just fill this with white by pressing Alt Backspace, and I will just merge them together. Alright, now we'll actually go to select and choose color range, and I can sample white in here, and let's see the fuzziness, maybe put it a little bit up, and I think this is good. Let me actually, now we have the selection of the shadow tool, don't want that, so I will go back, go to select color range, and I will put up the fuzziness to around 50, and I think this looks okay. And then I'm gonna inverse the selection by pressing Ctrl Shift or Command Shift I, and I will create a layer mask just like that. Alright, now I will just take it by pressing V. I will take it and drag it to our document in here, and let's call this silk, and let's right click and convert it to smart object. And now we can put the same camera raw filter in here too, in the silk layer. Alright, I think it looks good. Now I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T, and I will try to place our silk in here. I want it to be in the ground. Maybe rotate it a little bit, somewhere around here. Alright, something like this. I think it looks good. Let me just put down the opacity to see exactly what we are doing. So I want this part to be coming from here. So I'm gonna right click and choose warp, and I'm gonna warp it a little bit too. Just like this. Maybe push this point a little bit, this point, and warp it a little bit down in here. Just like that. Alright, and I would one click on this check mark. Now we'll put back the opacity to 100%. Alright, now I'm gonna try to fade this, or like blend it with the other scarf in here. So I'm gonna apply a layer mask, and using my brush I'll just delete all this area in here until I see the other scarf, and then I will bring it back, this part in here. I'm using the same shadow of the other scarf to blend it, and maybe I will just blend this with the dark of the cave, this rocks in here, just like that. Maybe put down the opacity a little bit and blend this a little bit. It's easier with the dark in here. Alright, I think it looks good, but of course we're gonna still improve it even more. Maybe I will go back and adjust it a little bit, but I think for now it looks okay. Let me just maybe put a little bit more shadow in this area in here. I will put down the opacity to like 30%, and I will just delete this part in here. Maybe make it a little bit shown, just like that. And I think it looks good. And we're gonna fix this white parts in here too, but I think for now it looks okay. Just see these parts. Maybe I will make the rock to be appeared even more. So using using black, can reveal this part of the rock of the mountain. We can even also go to the lasso tool. It actually creates like a sharp edge selection. Let me redo it, and I'm gonna press Alt just in case my cursor or my mouse just lets go. I can change it to poly tool in here. Alright, and then I'm just gonna press X and press delete. Now we have a very good sharp part of the rock in here. Alright, I think I like that. Alright, I think it looks good, and of course we can always go back and adjust it if we want. Alright, I think our silk in here is ready. Now we can go ahead and start merging everything together and color adjusting everything with our final image. So we're gonna first make the image look like it's at night. So let's go to adjustment and choose color lookup, and inside the 3D LUT files, it's by default coming with Photoshop, so everyone should have this night from day cube in here. And as you can see, it will make everything darker, and this will help to blend our image. Alright, next I will go to adjustments again and choose hue and saturation. And in the default in here, we gonna keep it as default, but in the master in here, we're gonna choose blue, and I will put down the blues like -50 or -60. So let's keep it -50. And as you can see, because this color lookup, it will add a lot of blue, and I don't like that. So just to balance things out, maybe I will put down the opacity of the hue and saturation like to 85% or 90. Alright, next I will group them together by pressing Ctrl, and I will select them both, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command G, and let me just call this night. Alright, now I only want the night to be affected like in the edges, not in the lamp, and also not in these areas in the middle. So I'm gonna create a layer mask, and I will choose a brush with a very low opacity, and I will start brushing using black to reveal a little bit of the girl image in here, especially the ear, because I want it to be very clear in here. Alright, something like this. Also the lamp. Alright, as you can see now we're starting to blend everything together using these two layers. I mean, of course this is not our final image, but I think it starts to look better already. Alright, something like this, maybe a little bit in this part in here, but I think I want the model to be a little bit dark, and also I want it to press Ctrl Command T and make it a little bit smaller, put it just right here, maybe, yeah, something around here. Alright, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna press Ctrl or Command and one click on the model layer, and then I will select the night group layer mask, and I'm gonna press Ctrl Command H to hide the selection, and then I will paint using white to make it a little bit dark in the back in here, just like this. Alright, I think it looks good. Now I'm gonna press Ctrl Command H again and Ctrl Command D to deselect. Okay, so we still have things to do. So actually let's fix this silk layer, because I don't like the red between the scarf and this silk. They are not matching very good. So what I'm gonna do is I will go to adjustment and I will choose hue and saturation, and then I will clip it to the silk layer in here by one click on this clipping mask icon, and then I will go to the saturation and I will put it down quite a bit, like -50, yeah, something like that, just to, and maybe add a little bit of cyan, and maybe put back the opacity a little bit like that. Let me add a little bit of black. I think it doesn't look that bad, but I don't like it. We still need to adjust it. Alright, so let's add a level adjustment. So let's go to level and clip it, and then make it a little bit darker. Alright, I think now it looks much better. Yeah, I think it looks much better. Let's go back to the adjustment, to the hue and saturation, and bring down or bring up the saturation to -35, and maybe put more black. Alright, and let's see the levels. Play with the midtones a little bit. Alright, I think I like it much better. Alright, I think I like this. Now I want to add a little bit of shadow down in here, and also I want to merge or make this down part that is in the ground, I want it to look a little bit like it's been affected with the color of the ground, because I think this silk is a little bit transparent, not that much, but I want us to add a little bit of gradient in here. Alright, so let's create a new layer on top, and let's name this shadow. Alright, and then I will actually select the silk layer, and I will load the selection of the silk layer by pressing Ctrl Command and one click on the layer. And then I will select the shadow layer, and then I will inverse the selection by pressing Ctrl Shift I. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command H to hide the selection, so we won't see those marching ants. And I will grab a brush and I will sample a color from the ground. And now because we inversed the selection, we can just paint black over this. Let me just put the opacity 100 and the opacity and the flow 100. We can just paint just right in the edges without painting over silk in here. Alright, something like this, and a little bit in here too. And I'm doing this a little bit quicker because this tutorial will be long, but I'm hoping that it won't be that long. So something like that, I think it will work. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command H and Ctrl Command D to deselect. And let's see, I think it looks good, and I will put down the opacity a little bit, or like 85% or 70%. Alright, next I want to add a little bit of gradient. So again, I will select the silk layer, and I'm gonna press Ctrl Command and one click to load the selection of the silk shape, and I will create a new layer on top, and I will call this gradient. Alright, now I will go to my gradients in here, and I have in here the linear selected with the color to transparent in here. And then I will select a color from the ground again, maybe something like this one, a little bit brownish like this. And then I will go down in this area in here, and I will just one click and put up just like this. It's a little bit in these parts, maybe a little bit up, just like that. I think it looks good. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command D, and as you can see we have this. Now we'll change the blending mode of it to color. You can see it looks very black, so this way we can put down the opacity a little bit, like 40, actually not a little bit, something like this, just to give it this gradient look, that it will be affected with the ground. Alright, something like that. And I think I'm very happy with the silk layer now, so I'm just gonna group everything together by selecting the gradient and then pressing Shift and click on the silk layer, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command G, and I will call this silk. And let's see, I think it looks really good. Now let's select the elf layer, and let's add a little bit of details to the face, maybe like some red shading and a little bit of lipstick. That's a little bit, not a lot, so I will just create a new layer on top, and I will call this lips. And I'm trying to do this fast, so I'm just gonna clip it to the elf layer, and I will grab a brush and I will choose a red color. Maybe I will sample red from here, not that strong, somewhere around here. Alright, and I will press OK, and let me just grab my stylus, and I will just zoom in a little bit, and I will make the brush smaller, and let me actually see what brush I'm using. Let me just choose this one, and then I will start painting. You just put down the opacity a little bit and make the brush bigger, and I will start painting in here. Alright, something like that, and then I will change the blending mode to overlay, and I will bring down the opacity to like 50%. Alright, next I will go to the blur tool, and I have like 10 or like 15 in the strength, and I will just blur the edges quite a bit, as like this. I mean, I don't have sample all layer selected. It is very important, otherwise you will blur the other information of the image. So let's make sure that this is not selected. Alright, something like that. And also I want to add a little bit of shadow in here, so I will go and choose the burn tool, and I will make it smaller, and I will add a little bit of shadow just in this part in here. Maybe I will make the exposure like 25, and I will add a little bit of shadow in here. And actually I don't like this part, so I'm just gonna, I will work only with the smudge tool, and I will just make sure that I have sample all layers unchecked, and I will just move this a little bit, just like that. Alright, I think I like that. Now I'm gonna create another layer, and I will clip it by pressing Alt or Option and go between and one click, and I will call this eyes. And I will zoom in again, and this time I will add a little bit of highlights around the eyes using the same red. Alright, and I will do the same in this part too. And I will erase a little bit in here using my erase tool, and the same in this part in here. Alright, now we'll change the blending mode to overlay, and I will bring down the opacity quite a bit, like 40%. Alright, let me go back to the brushes and add a little bit in here. Like that, and a little bit in this part, and maybe a little bit in here. Alright, I think I like that. Let me see the before and after. I think it looks good. Just put down the opacity like 30% or 40%. And then I will do the same. I will go and select the blur tool, and I will blur the edges just like this. And the same for the other eye. Alright, I think it looks good. Just a little bit of difference on the feature of the face. Alright, now I will create a new layer, and I will call this eyes 2. I want to add a little bit of highlights in here, like a circle in here that is a little bit shining. So actually I'm gonna sample a color from this lamp So let me actually select the brush, and then I will sample. Let me sample this color in here, and I will go back to the eye, and I will use a very small brush with a low opacity. I will try to add like a circle. It's like this. I will do the same for the other part in here. Alright, I think it looks good. Now we'll change the blending mode to, let's see, no color dodge or screen. Let's go with, this is very interesting. I like the screen, but I think I will go for screen, and I will put down the opacity like 30%. And then I will duplicate it by pressing Ctrl Command J, and I will clip it again, and let's go for color dodge and put up the opacity quite a bit, just like that. Alright, I think it looks good, just like for a little bit of details. Alright, I think we are doing very good with the model or the elf, and we still need to add a little bit of highlights of the hairs in here, but we can do that in a separate layer. So let me just group everything in here by selecting the eyes to copy, and then press shift and one click on the elf, and then press Ctrl Command G and call this elf. Alright, now we're gonna put some highlights on the hairs in here, just to match the light of the lamp in here of this candle. So let's create a new layer on top of the elf group and call this hair. Alright, and then I will select the brushes, and I will switch to the hair brushes that we are using, this one, and make sure that's 100% opacity and flow, and the smoothing I will put it 0%. Alright, now I will zoom in, and I want a light color, so I'm gonna sample a color from here and then actually make it a little bit yellowish orangey in here, somewhere around here. Alright, and then I'm gonna start painting to put a little bit of highlights to the hairs. And also it helps if you change the blending mode to screen or lighting. As you can see, it can blend it very good with the hairs that we already have. Alright, so I would keep doing like that. Alright, I think something like this, it looks good. And we can always drop down the opacity if we want. Alright, let's see. Yeah, something like this. And also, if you don't like the color, you can always go to adjustment and choose hue and saturation and clip it to the hair layer and change the color to whatever color you want. Maybe you want it a little bit greenish, or to add more yellow. Maybe put the saturation a little bit down or up. I think somewhere around here. Alright, I think that looked good. Maybe I want to darken it a little bit in this area. So let me grab a normal brush and let's create a level adjustment and clip it, and let's bring down the mid-tones a little bit. Maybe let's do it with the black and white. Let's put down the whites quite a bit, something around here. And then I will invert this layer mask to black by pressing Ctrl Command I. And I will go here and let me bring down the opacity a little bit and darken it using black, using white as my foreground color. That's a little bit something like that. Maybe I need to darken it even more, so let me just put the blacks somewhere around here. Let me go back to the layer mask and make this area a little bit lighter. Alright, something like that. I think it looks good. Now I'm gonna group this hair layer by selecting the level and the hair layer, and then press Ctrl Command G, and let's call this hairs. And let's group everything with the girl. Let's select the elf group and the silk group by pressing Shift, and then press Ctrl Command G and call this elf or fairy. And let's see now. As you can see, we have a little bit of shadow in here. We need to delete that, so I'm gonna apply a layer mask, and using black we'll just delete from this area in here. Now let's see. Okay, it's gone. Alright, I think we are doing good. Okay, now let's select the model layer, and I want to add a little bit of shadow as right here. So I'm gonna press Ctrl while I'm selecting the model layer and one click on this new layer, and this will put a layer under it, and let's call this shadow. And then I'm gonna use a normal brush and zoom in and sample a color from the ground. And let's go and add a little bit of shadow in this area in here. Maybe make it a little bit, the opacity a little bit down, and add the shadow. That's a little bit. For the light to reflection of the light. We put down the opacity a little bit. And I will add shadow in this center area in here. Alright, something like this. And then I will change the blending mode to multiply and drop down the opacity to somewhere around here. Alright, just a little bit of shadow, it's not that big deal. I think it looks good. Just bring down the opacity even more. Alright, something like that. And next, I'm gonna create a new layer on top of the model layer. And I will clip it to the model layer and I will call this gradient. And I will do the same that we did with the silk. I will sample a color from the ground again. And I will choose my gradient, the linear gradient, color to transparent. And then I will go just right here and make one point and put up the gradient just like that. To have a little bit of reflection of the color of the ground. Alright, and then I will change the blending mode to color. And as you can see now we have the color a little bit changed, which is good. Maybe drop down the opacity a little bit to like 70%. Alright, I think it looks good. Okay, so let me group this in a new group. So I will select the gradient and then I will select the model shadow by pressing shift again, and I will press Ctrl Command G and I will call this model or human. Alright, now we have everything in a group. Okay, and now I want to add a little bit of dust, maybe in here and then behind the human group in here. Alright, so let's go to our file and open these stars in here from Unsplash, and I will just make it bigger to somewhere like this, and I will one click on this check mark. Alright, now I'm gonna desaturate this layer. Let me just rename it to particles or dust, it's okay. Alright, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift U and this will desaturate it, and after that I'm gonna press Ctrl Command L to open the level adjustment, and I will grab this sample in here with the colors. So this is like the whitest color, so we're gonna zoom in and let's sample like a grayish color for the level adjustment to make everything black to this gray point in here, as you can see. Maybe we'll make it even more black, yeah, something like that, and then we press OK. Alright, now we'll change the blending mode of this to screen, and as you can see this will add what looks like dust or particles. And I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T, maybe rotate it and make it smaller somewhere around here. They want it to be mainly next to the lamp, part of the lamp in here. Alright, and bring down the opacity a little bit, and then I will add a layer mask and use my brushes and delete from these areas in here. And we can always duplicate it by pressing Ctrl Command J and then press Ctrl Command T and bring it down to make it even smaller or bigger. Let me see. Alright, something like that. And again I will delete using the layer mask all this in here, in the face of the model, maybe all these parts too. Do the same to the other one. Alright, I think it looks good. Maybe delete in here. Alright, now we'll make a copy of this particle by pressing Alt or option, and I will put it under the human group in here. And I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T. Let me just delete this layer mask first, and I will press Ctrl Command T, and I will bring it, we'll make it bigger, and I will put it in here. Let me actually make this on top and make this 2 below, just like that. Alright, now we have what we want. And again, I will add a layer mask, and I will delete in these areas in here. And I will keep everything in here the same. Alright, now let me group everything. Let me put these 2 in a group by pressing Ctrl Command G and call this particles. And this one I will group it too by pressing Ctrl Command G again and call this particles or dust. Alright, now we have both of them in here. Of course, we can always go back and tweak it even more. Okay, now it's time for us to add some lights or atmosphere to the image. So I will create a new layer on top of the night group in here, and I will call this light 1. And then I will go to my gradient, and I will sample this color in here, somewhere around here, like a little bit yellow like this, and I add a little bit of orange. Alright, something like that. And then using the radial gradient and color to transparent, I will just go in the middle in here, and I will one click and drag. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I need to change the radial, exactly, not the linear, the radial in here, and then I will one click and drag. That's like that. And then I will change the blending mode to screen, and I will put down the opacity quite a bit, like 22. I mean, in this case, I think it's better to use color dodge. So let's see. Yeah, I think it did much better because we have a dark area in here. So I think screen, it looks a little bit like not blended, even not blended really good with the background. So I will keep its color dodge. Alright, next I will create another layer and I will call it light 2. And this time I will use the same color, but I will make it a little bit bigger to somewhere around here. Maybe move it a little bit. Now let me redo this and let's do it again, somewhere like this. Alright, and then I will change the blending mode to color dodge, or let me see, color dodge, and put it way more down. And maybe press Ctrl Command T and make it bigger, just like that. Alright, I think it looks good. Okay, now while I sampled this color in here, I will keep this color in here that we have on our foreground, and then I will go and choose solid color, and this will fill the solid color with the same color that we have in our foreground color. As you can see, maybe make it a little bit orangey and a little bit down in here. And then I will change the blending mode to color dodge again, and as you can see. And for this one, I only want to affect the rocks, as you can see. and you can also adjust the color to wherever you want, maybe a little bit warmer. Alright, something like that. And then I will select the layer mask, and I will press Ctrl+Command+I, and this will invert the layer mask. And using a brush, I will put down the opacity way down, like 20% or 25, and also the flow for like 50% or 40. And I will start painting using white in these rocks in here, just to give a little bit of like lights to the surrounding area in here. Alright, for this part I don't want to touch the model, so I'm gonna go to the human group in here, and I will load the selection of the model, and then I'm gonna invert the selection by pressing Ctrl+Shift+I or Command+Shift+I, and this will allow me to paint only outside of the model in here. So let me press Ctrl+Command+H to hide the selection and paint over this area in here to give a little bit of light to our silk in here, maybe a little bit on the face. You can always go back and change the color to whatever color we want. Alright, I think it looks good. Maybe you think that I overdo it, but I did that on purpose for me to bring down the opacity and choose the right opacity for this. Maybe I would add a little bit in here. Alright, next I will press Ctrl+Command+H and then Ctrl+Command+D, and I will just put down the opacity to 0, and I will go up just little by little to see the best number for our lights in here. As you can see, doesn't look that bad now. Now maybe I will put down the opacity even more, somewhere around here. And you can add as many layers of lights as you want. For example, I can duplicate this color fill in here and delete the layer mask and create another one, black one, by pressing Auto Option, and then maybe change the color to something brighter than this. And let's see, it looks very, very bright, but I'm gonna change the blending mode of this to overlay, and let's see now. I think it looks better. I'm pressing Shift to disable the layer mask and see how it looks, because I still want to add more lights to the rocks. So let's just see change the color to maybe a brighter orange color or yellow, yeah, something like this. And then I will select the layer mask, and again I will paint, but this time I will only paint over the rocks in here. Maybe a little bit in the ground too. And a little bit in the hairs. I think I like the overlay better than the color dodge, so I think I will do some changing. to the whole thing. Let me disable this and see. Alright, so I will put this way down like 20, and I will make this visible, and I will put it also down to like 50 or 40%. I think it looks nice, but still I will add another one, and this time I will only use it for the rocks. So let me just make it to like color dodge and change the color to something like orangey. Let's keep it actually overlay. Alright, I think this is good, and I will make the flow 100%, and I will start brushing over here and put the opacity up for the color fill. Alright, something like this, and maybe change the color to like this one in here. I think it looks good. Alright, let me now make another color fill. Maybe I will duplicate this one, and I will delete the layer mask, and let's see. Now I want only to affect the model image in here, so we'll add a little bit of lights to the edges. So what I'm gonna do is I will load the selection of the model again. So I will go to the human in here, and I will press Ctrl or Command and one click on the model, and this will load the selection. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl or Command H. Let me first actually apply a layer mask, and then go back and press Ctrl or Command and load the selection of the model, and press Ctrl or Command H to hide the selection. Let me actually make a black layer mask by pressing Ctrl or Command I to invert it, and then I will load the selection this time of the model by pressing Ctrl or Command, and I will select the layer mask and press Ctrl or Command H, and I will zoom in, and I will make my brush smaller, and using white as my foreground color, I will add to the edges in here. Just to give a little bit of lights to the edge of the model. Maybe a little bit in this part, and a little bit in here. Alright, I think it looks okay. See before and after, and I would put down the opacity to like 50%. Alright, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command H and Ctrl Command D to deselect. Maybe I would put down the opacity even more. Alright, now I want to emphasize this part even more. So what I'm gonna do is actually I'm gonna use the blending options. So I'm gonna load again the selection of the model by pressing Ctrl Command, and I will create a new layer, and I will fill this with whatever color I have. So I'm gonna press Alt backspace or Option backspace, and this will fill it with this, but I will put the fill to 0%, and I will go to this FX icon and I will choose blending options, and I will use the inner shadow, and you will probably have it to normal, but you can change it to color dodge and sample a color, maybe this color in here, and make it a little bit brighter. And then I will just choose like a right placement for it. As you can see, I can use it with my cursor. I think it looks really nice like that. You can see before and after. Alright, and I will drop down the opacity to like 70%. And I think now it looks much better. Alright. Also, I want to add a little bit of shadow to the back parts. So I will do the same thing. I will actually make a selection of the model image in here. We already have it in here. Let's call this lights, and I will actually make a new layer, and I will press Ctrl Command H to hide my selection, and I will sample a color from the ground, and I will just paint using a very soft brush. I will paint to add a little bit of shadow to the back of the model in here. Of course, we're gonna change the blending mode of it to multiply. This way you can see there's a little bit of shadow. Alright, something like that. And I will put it under the light layer, and I will bring down the opacity like 40% or 30%. You can see much better. And I will press Ctrl Command H, Ctrl Command D to deselect. Alright, for the light you can add as many layers as you want, but I think for this tutorial it looks good. Maybe I will go back and tweak it even more, but I think it looks good. Let me just group everything in here by pressing the light, by selecting the light layer, the first one, and press Shift and select the light one, and then press Ctrl Command G and call this light. And let's see the before and after the light. Yeah, I think it looks much better. It had a very nice dimension to the image. Also, sometimes help if you change the background of Photoshop to white, and it will give you a very nice different perspective to the image. Maybe you can adjust something with it, or maybe see the different things. But I think for this tutorial it looks really good. Alright, let me go back to default. Okay, I think it's not bad. Alright, now we're gonna add some smoke and fogs. So let's create a new layer again and call this fog. And then I will go to my brushes and I will choose this smokes and fog that I have in here. I will make sure to upload this for you. You will find it down in the link from the description below. Alright, now we'll sample a color from here, and we'll make the brushes smaller, and I will put down the opacity to like 40% and the flow to like 50%, and I will add a little bit of fog to the image, but it's white, I don't like that, so I will go back, delete everything, and then I will sample like a warm color maybe I will put it somewhere in here, and I will add again the fogs. I think it's much better now. Just to give a little bit of atmosphere to the image. Alright, and somewhere in here, and maybe right here. Alright, something like that, and then I will bring down the opacity a lot, like 40 or 30%. As you can see, this will give this really nice atmosphere to the whole thing with the particles. Maybe I would add a little bit in here and in here. Alright, now we'll create a new layer, and I will call this fog 2. Maybe I would change the blending mode to screen and see. I think it's much better in screen. And I will do the same for the second layer, change it to screen, and using the same color, maybe I will choose another brush. And let me actually make the opacity way down and the flow too, and I will add some smokes and fogs in here. Alright, and I will bring down the opacity way down. Like something like that. I think it looks good. And I will group them together by pressing Ctrl Command G, and I will call this fogs. And then I can actually, I want to delete this part in here, so I will make a layer mask to this fog group, and using black with the same brush I will delete in this part in here. I will delete all this using the same one, so we'll add more effect to our image. Here we put up the opacity, the flow to 100%. And I will delete a little bit from this group in here. Maybe in here too. Alright, I think it looks good now. Now I want to add actually more light. I think it needs more light. So let's create a new layer and put the name to light. And let's go actually to the gradient and sample this light in here, and using the radio with the color to transparent, I will make the light somewhere like this. Let me redo this, like somewhere like way more up to somewhere like that, yeah. And change the color mode to screen and put it way down. Just like that. Maybe the fill too. Yeah, I think now it looks much better. I would put it even more down. I think I like it now much better. And then I'll create another one, call it light 2. And for this one, I think I will sample the same color and make it a little bit warmer. Yeah, somewhere around here. And I will use the same radio, and this time I will put it way more up, like that. Let me press Ctrl Command T and stretch it by pressing Shift and put it a little bit up, Yeah, somewhere around here, and one click on this check mark and change the blending mode to color dodge. Or actually let's change it to overlay or soft light. Let's keep it soft light, and I will put down the opacity, and then I will apply a black layer mask by pressing Alt or Option and one click on this layer mask, and I will use a brush, a normal round brush like this one, and I have the opacity way down and the flow like 70, and I will paint over those rocks. I want them to have more light, maybe a little bit in this part. And put up the opacity. Yeah, I think I like this now. Yeah, much better. Maybe a little bit in here, and change the color to overlay. Yeah, I think overlay looks better. I will keep it overlay and maybe bring down the opacity to like 70%. Alright, now actually for us to have this light as a focal point, I'm gonna create a solid color, but let me first sample like a darkest color from the ground, like this one. And let's see how dark it is. Actually it's really black. I don't want that. I want maybe this one in here, maybe this one, and put it a little bit to the orange area in here. Alright, something like that. And then I will go and add a solid color, and I will press OK, because we already have the color that we want. And I will change this to, let me see, overlay. Yeah, let's change it to overlay. And then I'm gonna invert the layer mask by pressing Ctrl or Command I, and I will use the same brush, and I will add, using white as my foreground color, I would add like a vignette in the edges in here. In this way we can see the light very good, because we have all the edges darkened. And I will put it under these two layers. Yeah, I think it looks good. Maybe I will add a little bit in this area in here. And bring down the opacity to like 70%. Yeah, I think it looks nice. Now let's group everything by pressing Ctrl Command G, and let's call this light 2. And let's see. Yeah, I think it's much better. Maybe I don't like this part in here to be that bright, so I'm gonna add a layer mask, and I will delete, using black as my foreground color, I will delete this area in here. And a little bit in here too. Alright, I think we are doing good and we're almost done. Okay, so let me group this night with the other light, and I will press Ctrl Command G to call this atmosphere. A little bit of atmosphere to the overall. You can see before and after. And the good thing about grouping everything, you can just bring down the opacity if you think it's a little bit too much. Maybe sometimes only like 5%, bringing down the opacity, it will make a difference. Alright, I think I'm happy with this. So let's see before and after. Alright, now I want to make a stamp visible layer. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E all together, and this will make a stamp visible layer, and I will call this Camera Raw. We're gonna add a Camera Raw filter, and then I will right click and choose Convert to Smart Objects. Alright, now we'll go to Filter and choose Camera Raw filter. Alright, here we're gonna change the temperature, everything. So let me see. I think adding a little bit of yellow, it will make the image pop more. Let's see the blue and the yellow. That's a little bit of yellow, I think it looks good. And then let's add magenta or green. And let's keep it like this, like -5. And for the exposure, I would put it a little bit down, and the contrast a little bit up. Alright, something like this. And the highlight, I don't think we need to add highlights. Let's see the shadows. Maybe I would put down the shadows just a little bit. Like -2. You don't have to mess with the whites, as you can see. And let's go actually to the clarity and put the clarity a little bit down, not that much, like -15, or just to give it this blurry, dreamy effect. And let's see. Alright. We'll put the clarity even down, like -15, and I will add a little bit of texture, like 2 or 4, and let's see the vibrance. Let's add a little bit of vibrance and bring down the saturation a little bit. Alright, now let's go to the details, and I want to actually add a little bit of noise reduction, like 20, just to give it this really smooth to the skin, because we have a lot of noise. And let's go to the color mixer, and let's check the hue in here. Let me see, let's mess with the yellows. Yeah, let's put down the yellow a little bit, and let's see the reds. And let's add a little bit of, desaturate the reds a little bit, like +8. And let's put down the orange a little bit too. And let's see the magenta. Let's add a little bit of magenta. And then I will go to the luminance, and let's mess with the reds a little bit. Just like that. And a little bit of yellow. And let's check the magenta. Alright, I think it's good like this. Maybe I can go back and tweak it even more. That's why I always like to convert to smart objects, so I can always go back if I don't like something and tweak even more. You can always put down the opacity to like 70%. Alright, I think it looks good. Now I'm gonna create a new layer, and I will call this dodge and burn. Alright, and then I'm gonna press Shift F5 on my keyboard. This will open the fill options, and I will choose 50% gray, and I will press OK. And then I will change the blending mode to overlay, and I will use the dodge and burning tool. So I have like 6% or 7% in the exposure, the same as the burn, like 6 or 8%. So I'm gonna start with the dodge. I will make this a little bit lighter, and then for you to save time, you can just press Alt or Option, and this will switch the dodge to the burn tool, and you can add shadow in here, so it will be faster like that. You can press Alt, you can make this lighter, and then press Alt and make this darker. So I will do the same thing in here. Alright, I think it looks good, and you know, you can spend as many time as you want for the dodging and tool. It's always good. Alright, next I will actually add an adjustment layer. So I will go to adjustment and choose gradient map, and I will open the gradients in here, and actually I will change this color stop to maybe this orangey color, a little bit around in here, maybe just like this. And then I will click on this second color stop, and I will change it to 50% gray, like that. Let me change this to even make it even darker, or like somewhere in here, and I will press OK. And then I will change the blending mode of this to soft light, and I will bring down the opacity to like 0, and I will go up to see the effects of this to our image. Maybe I would put it down to like 28%, and I think it looks good. Alright, next I will add a curve. So I will go to adjustment and choose curves, and in the RGB in here I will go for the blue, and maybe I will add a little bit of blue by taking this point and putting it up, and I will add a little bit of yellow, not that much. Actually, I think more yellow, it looks even better, just like that. And then I will go to the red, and let me see, maybe I would add a little bit of red, yes, a little bit, and a little bit of cyan in here. Yeah, maybe somewhere like that. I think it looks interesting. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I think something like this. Let's see before and after. Let me go back to the curve, and this time I will stick with the RGB, and I will make it a little bit darker and make a little bit of contrast. Maybe I will fade it a little bit by taking this point in here and putting it up, and I will do the same for the other one. And now let's see before and after. Yeah, I think I would put down the opacity too to like 50%, and I don't think it looks bad. Alright, so we're almost done. Now the only thing that I want to add is a blur to the edges. So I'm gonna make a stamp visible layer by pressing Ctrl Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E all together, and this would create another stamp visible layer, and I would call this blur. And now we'll go to the Q mode by pressing Q, and using my brushes I will make the brush 100% opacity, 100% flow, and black you can paint where you want your area to be selected. So I will paint in here just like that, and in here, and in here, and a little bit in here. And then I will make my opacity of the brush like 50 or 40%, and I will add a little bit of selection to this area and a little bit in this area too, just to give this really nice blur to our image. Maybe a little bit in here and in here. And then I will switch to white so I can remove some of this from here, and maybe remove this part too. And remove from here. That's a little bit of, I think this is good. And then I will press Q again, and this will make our selection, but we need to inverse it. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift I to inverse the selection, and then I will go to filter and choose blur and lens blur. Alright, as you can see, it looks really nice. You can see the before and after with the blur, and you can add as many radius for the blur. So I think like 28 is good, and I will press OK. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl D to deselect the selection, and let's see before and after. You can see. Alright, I think it looks nice. Alright, so the last thing that we're gonna do is to make another stamp visible layer by pressing Ctrl Shift Alt E or Command Shift Alt E all together, and let's call this high pass. Alright, now I'm gonna desaturate this image by pressing Ctrl Shift U or Command Shift U, and then I will go to filter, other, and choose high pass. And I will keep the radius set to 1.4 pixels, and then I will change the blending mode to like hard light or overlay. And let's see, this will add a little bit of details to our image, especially the hairs. I want them to be like this, but I don't want this to be applied to the whole image, so I'm gonna add a black layer mask by pressing Alt or Option in one click. And then I will use my brushes, and using white as my foreground color, I can add this wherever I want. Maybe a little bit in the hands, and a little bit in here, and in there, just to give a little bit of details of the textures and everything, maybe to the hat. And a little bit to the silk in here. And let's see. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we are done. And let me group everything in here by selecting the camera raw layer, and press Shift and select the high pass layer, and then press Ctrl Command G, and let's call this adjustment. And let's see the before and after. Yeah, it looks way better now, and that will be all. Let's see it with white. let's see before and after. Not bad. And that would be all. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed and you like this tutorial and this was a little bit helpful for you. If you try this or you made something similar, make sure to tag me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a like and comment and wait for more tutorials like this. And have a nice day. Thank you for watching.